Welcome, welcome, patrons. Do you feel lost? Wandering through life struggling to find who or what you should be to achieve your goals, if you even know what those goals should be? Then perhaps you need a place that will accept and protect you, give you everything you need to thrive as long as you complete the tasks you are given. Perhaps you need the Qun. What is it? Shortly put, the Qun is an unusual societal structure that is most notably used by the race of horned people we know as the Qunari, and they want everyone to follow it. Now granted, anyone that follows the Qun is a Qunari. The race is also known as the Qunari, or sometimes it's confusing, but we're not going to get into that today. But to just call the Qun a religion wouldn't get to the expanse at which the Qun controls one's life. To some, this can be a great comfort. To others, a true horror. To be honest, the subject is sort of awkward to talk about. Not that the subject matter is awkward, but that the Qun is described as this large belief system that very few truly understand the whole of it. Except that what we as players know about it is very little and is not going to take that long to explain. So you will leave this video with questions. You will leave this video with a vague idea on what the Qun believes and a decent understanding on how it acts, because that's the best we have at the moment. So for now, I'm going to be focusing on the belief system of the Qun itself, although I will touch upon its history and the Qunari people, because otherwise it's hard to understand without this information. I do plan on coming back to explore those topics more fully at a later date. But for now, this video focuses on the actual beliefs of the Qun as we understand it, and that's all. Beliefs. Anyway, as I just said, while the Qun in lore is explained to be complicated and have a lot going on, little has been given to us, the players. This makes some sense, in that so far we've only played people outside of the Qun, and most outside of it aren't allowed in cities that operate fully under the Qun. Even those within the Qun don't have full knowledge of the beliefs of the entire Qun. People are just taught what they are supposed to know. Remember that the Qun is basically a set of rules on how to live one's life, and there are a bunch of different rules for different ways of life. Like the rules of a baker are going to be different than one of a warrior. What we know of the Qun is so small compared to how much is supposed to exist. So to start, let's do a quick review on how the Qun was started. The Qun was founded by a man named Ashkari Khoslan. Note, Ashkari isn't his first name, it's just a title. It means something along the lines of one who seeks, and is given to anyone who is a philosopher or a researcher. Anyway, seeing the awful things in his society, Khoslan went in search of one without hopelessness and despair, but finding none, he spent some time alone in the desert. There, he saw a swarm of locusts, all acting together and none in despair. This gave him the idea of the Qun as we know it. Here's a codex entry about that moment. When the Ashkari looked upon the destruction wrought by locusts, he saw at last the order in the world. A plague must cause suffering for as long as it endures. Earthquakes must shatter the land. They are bound by their being. Asit tel eb, it is to be. For the world and the self are one. Existence is a choice. A self of suffering brings only suffering to the world. It is a choice, and we can refuse it. An excerpt from the Qun, Canto 4. The Qunari do love their metaphors, so let me expand on that a bit. Like the locusts and the earthquakes, people have a nature. Everything's nature combined forms order. It is the choice of the person to act with or against their nature. People's struggle with their nature creates struggle within the whole. So to fix the problems within society, they must first align people with their nature. Now jumping back to that canto, what we know of the writings of Khoslan all seem to be in poem format, so when you keep hearing that the Qunari do love their metaphors, the Qun itself is made up of a lot of them. And now you should know why the Qunari were so upset that the Tome of Khoslan was stolen. It's the basis of everything that their society is based on. That book that Isabella stole is the Qun. So the Tome of Khoslan, or the written Qun, is one thing, and then you have the philosophy of the Qun that's based off of the writings of Khoslan. The philosophy of the Qun are the rules to which the people live by so that they do not have to doubt their nature. At the heart of it all are two concepts, Is-Qun and A-Qun, mastery and balance. Mastery, or Is-Qun, the idea that the lack of knowledge leads to weakness, so one must master something to gain power. Balance, or Qun, true strength comes with balance and stillness. To listen is to know. These rules dictate almost everything in a person's life. I'll go over how basic Qunari society works in just a bit, but know that it's very, very different to the rest of Thetis. Everything is in order. Nothing is left up to chance. Your life is decided by higher-ups who know more about the Qun than you. As for what these exact rules are, we don't know. Besides the differences in the way of life, we have just a few nuggets of Qunari beliefs that we've picked over the past games. So let's just list them up in a bunch here. Because of the belief that the Qun is both the way of life and a philosophy, there are no proper religions under the Qun. They don't worship anything, so any converts must give up their past beliefs. While the Qun insists on the mastery of all things, they do not include magic in this. Magic is unpredictable and not able to be mastered, so they shun it. Any Qunari able to use magic are controlled as weapons. They are leashed, chained, their mouths are sewn shut, and they are controlled by a leader. While the Qunari don't hold them up as something to be worshipped, the Qunari do highly respect dragons, perhaps in part because of the rumors that Qunari have dragon blood inside of them. That being said, they are just another thing to put down in order to create order. The Qun doesn't think of a person as their body, but rather the job they perform. Without the job, they are without purpose and without personhood. This is why Sten needs his blade to return back home, because if he is so careless to have lost the blade in the first place, he must have not been doing his job well, and that is seen as a weakness. Without his weapon, he is not a person to the eyes of his people. Also, because of this belief, dead Qunari bodies are considered worthless and disposed of, while the tools of that individual used in their job are handled with care and honor. The tools are the soul of the person. You have probably heard of it here and there, but a popular saying among the Qunari talk about the demands of the Qun. But what are these demands? Take, for example, when you sacrifice the Chargers. Bull states that it was a demand of the Qun. The Chargers needed to die to complete the mission they were set out to do. That mission was seen as a way to help the whole of the Qunari community, so their deaths were necessary. The demands of the Qun is to ensure the success of the whole. Structure. It would be impossible to talk about the Qun without talking about how society works. I do want to save most of this for when I go over the nation of Parvalan, because this is basically all of what Parvalan is, but let's do just a quick review now. The Qunari are led by the Salisari, or known as the Triumvirate. These three people lead three different sections within the Qunari society. Aragenya. Head of the working class, she is responsible for nurturing and maintaining community health as well. Qun. Head of the priesthood, he or she heads the progress of science and how the Qun is taught to the masses. Shok. Head of the military, he is responsible for protection and dealing with foreign matters. Now for the average Qunari, there are no families in the Qun nor romantic relationships. When children are born, they are given to Tamasrans, a group of all-female priestesses who raise the children in bundles. These children have no name but are referred to by numbers, although Iron Bull does report that the kids often give each other nicknames. But eventually, all will be known by their job title. But not only are their names a part of their job, their gender is too. Children assigned to warriors will be male. Children assigned to manager roles will be female. Some branches in the Qun, like those who study the sciences, could be either gender, but the specific tasks they do are often broken up into different gender roles. Women will study one thing, men will study another. The line of thinking here is, all women are good at this thing, so anyone who is good at this thing must be a woman. So while Iron Bull's easy acceptance of Krem as a transgender man might seem as acceptance to the rest of Thetis, in the Qun, if Krem had been a cisgendered woman warrior, he would still be labeled as male. And this is why Sten was confused when he confronted a female warden about it. The warden is a warrior, but still is referred to as female. To some, this is backtracking and, rewriting a whole bunch of things, but we're not going to get into that. This is the in-lore explanation for why those two things are different. Anyway, when the children turned 12 years old, the Tamasrans assigned the children, with the use of various tests, to what job they will eventually grow up to do. These children then begin to learn their trade. They then work that trade for the rest of their lives, working towards mastery of their job. There is no currency, they are just given shelter and food and everything they need just to live. Now, it's not to say that a person born in the Qun is stuck with one job all their life. It is possible to submit yourself to the Ben Hassrath if you feel you're not doing your job correctly. The Ben Hassrath will then re-educate you. What this means just honestly depends. It could be as scary as torture or just a reassignment of work. Unfortunately, you don't know which is in store for you when submitting to the Ben Hassrath. The danger. Now, for some of you, this might not seem like that bad of an idea, and that perhaps Thetis is just overreacting a bit on the whole Qun thing. And, I would agree that the idea of the Qun isn't that bad. The problem is that once the idea becomes reality, reality sets in. The Qun teaches that you don't need to know anything other than what your higher-ups tell you to, that there is no use to thinking about or doing anything other than your job. Personal relationships are second to your work, and to think otherwise will cause a downfall in society. To not follow the Qun causes you to lose control. You will end up murdering and becoming barbaric. You will lose the basics of food, a place to sleep, everything without the Qun. The problem with the Qun is that it sells you peace and comfort, but gives you fear to do anything other than what you are told. The Qun is the most comfortable form of slavery. But to some, to the elves who would have been beaten and abused, to the poor who would have starved to death in the streets, to those who have seen horrors and would do anything to escape it, it's still a better alternative. And this is what makes the Qun so scary. Not that it rules and teaches fear, but that it is genuinely the better options in some cases compared to other parts of Thetis. And that, dear patrons, is all that we know of the Qun. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory? Feel free to tweet me at Gildathon on Twitter or send a PM to your Zilgillanon on Reddit. The rest are all.